This is the Anything Goes Project video stream. Please be patient, the show will begin momentarily. Remember, the show can be reached via email at stalkermailbox@gmail.com, or simply call in and leave us a voicemail at 361-433-5739. If you like the show, please subscribe and leave us a rating. This helps the show to be seen. More video streams can be found on the Anything Goes Project YouTube channel. To help the show, subscribe and like the channel. The Anything Goes Project can be found on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Castbox, Stitcher Radio, or anywhere you get your podcast media from. You're listening to the Anything Goes Project. Interesting topics, interesting things. Real stories by real people. Your host is Mike. The Anything Goes Project is a production of M&C Designs. Be advised, this show may not be suitable for all ages. Many of the topics are for mature audiences only. The explicit tag is there for a reason. If you would like to contact the show, email us at stalkermailbox@gmail.com, or leave us a message at 361-433-5739. And now, on with the show.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Mike with the Anything Goes Project, and this is your After Dark special. Tonight, we have a super cool, awesome episode for you. We're going to be discussing stuff on cryptozoology, UFOs, scary stories that you listeners have wrote in. But I've also got something else extra for you. I've got a special guest. The other night, you heard me on Out of the Blank podcast. Well, tonight, I'm bringing Robbie Robertson on, and sitting to my left, 1,253.25 miles, is Robbie. Welcome to the show.
You were so close, but it's actually like it's pronounced Robbie Robertson. Yes.
Robertson.
I go by Robbie because being called Robert Robertson was a little bit ridiculous.
It's a little weird.
You don't want to guess my middle name.
Robbie Rob?
No, Theodore. No, just kidding.
So, dude, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right, man. I'm interested in what we're going to be talking about for sure tonight.
So basically, man, this is kind of an experiment we're doing here. To any of the listeners out there that are listening, normally I do my After Dark episodes solo, unless I'm bringing on like somebody like I've got coming on in August, Marie D. Jones. She's a well-known author in the paranormal field. Sometimes I do that, but we're trying something new tonight. I'm bringing on another podcast host, and we're going to see if we can make this After Dark episode kind of humorous, creepy, funny, wherever we want to go with it. It's anything goes, but we're still going to talk about scary shit.
Yeah, I don't need to sleep tonight.
Cool. Well, before we get going, I want to bring us in real quick. I've got to share. I've got several stories that I'm going to share tonight, but I'm going to share one real quick because the other night, most of you know, I did the Ouija board experiment. I had a listener write in about it. Apparently, he wasn't too happy about me doing it. This is Henry P. from Colorado. Greetings from Colorado. I hope this makes it on the show. I saw your post on Instagram about the experiment you were going to do with the Ouija board and thought, shit, what the hell? I'm going to watch this. I followed you on Facebook, clicked on the live feed, and thought to myself when I saw the board just sitting there, wow, this is going to be uneventful. Then my computer crashed. And I mean crashed. It took nearly an hour to get it back up and running. Then I started hearing noises in my apartment. I finally got it back on and was listening to the live feed. Man, there was all kinds of noises on your end too. Please tell me that you closed out the session before you stopped the experiment. My computer has crashed 2 more times since this. Awesome, huh?
Sounds like something slept through.
I don't think it's just him, because I had a lot of people commenting that they could actually hear the stuff that was going on in my office. And you can see on the walls right here beside me. This is sound treatment. I got this all over the place. And usually this curtain is drawn all the way across the room, so that dampers any noise coming from that side of my room. That's where I do all my art and stuff like that on that side. And this whole side has that sound treatment all the way around, black and purple. Worked great. Apparently not if you're doing a Ouija board, though.
Pissing off some ghosts already, man. First of all, if they're haunting my house, I have the right to piss them off, okay? Because you don't want to see what I be doing in my free time.
Okay. Well, one of your Fallout pictures is moving back and forth.
It's also, I think that hopefully that's the AC because my curtains are doing the
I'm just
same
picking
thing.
on you, man. Messing with
Yeah, no, that's funny because I noticed you got the same Fallout poster right in the back.
Yeah.
Or you got the Nuka-Cola girl.
Nuka-Cola, and I've got a bunch of Walking Dead, Star Wars, you name it. I just got them all over the place.
So sticking on the concept of this Ouija board,
Mm-hmm.
do you even believe in the idea of a Ouija board? Because I think it's just also kind of like a folklore type story too.
Well, yes, it is a folklore story, and I gave a brief history on the Ouija board a while back, and basically I went into talking about the first people that actually started implementing the use of spirit boards were the Chinese. And supposedly there's a whole bunch of holy manuscripts that were written in Chinese that were written entirely through a spirit board, some sort of entity contacting them. And the idea of the Ouija board that we have now didn't really come into play until sometime after the Civil War, back when the spiritualist movement started, because you've got all these people that were going off to war to fight in the Civil War in the United States, and people lost their lives, and families were just so torn apart they didn't know what to do. So they were actually reaching out to these spiritualists that were supposedly mediums and so on that could actually supposedly connect them with the dead. That was when they started using the spirit board, which I'm actually going to start doing some research on it because I want to find out. Because Mary Todd, you know who Mary Todd is?
Yes.
Abraham Lincoln's wife. When Willie died in the White House from typhoid fever, I believe that's what it was. She actually started holding seances in the White House to try to communicate with him. So I'm curious, were they using a Ouija board?
Well, what's actually is pretty popular is you ever heard of Lincoln's Ghost? There's also known as the Lincoln's Ghost hoax. There was a picture, the hoax kind of fall around the basis of the whole idea of Lincoln's Ghost, but throughout the histories of all the presidents and the president's family members and members that were just part of the White House spending the night or something have experienced seeing Abraham Lincoln. One reported account, the most drastic one, was of him putting on his boots on the bed and seeming like he was in a hurry, like he had somewhere to be. And then getting up and running, and the next thing you know, he's just gone. Lyndon B. Johnson probably had one of the weirdest ones. It didn't really seem like it seemed like it was more humorized. And if anything knows about Lyndon B. Johnson and what he did to get himself out of the office, but I don't know if you're familiar with that. He was in trouble for showing his Johnson. Good old Lyndon B. Johnson.
Lyndon B. Johnson, and supposedly it was a very immaculately large Johnson. That's why he was very proud to show it.
His specific story, he goes off about saying that he came out of the bath naked with a cigar in his mouth and saw Abraham Lincoln standing by his fireplace. And he turned and says, "You seem to have caught me at a disadvantage, Mr. President." And he flicked his cigar a little bit, and a little bit of ash landed on the carpet. Now, you hear that story that was apparently told from Lyndon B. Johnson, you think, okay, you added some things inside of it to turn it into something funny like that, because there's no way you're popping out of the bath, chilling with a nice Cuban, and next thing you know, you walk into your thing, feeling the whole free breeze of the air, and next thing you know, there's Abraham Lincoln's standing right in front of you, even though he's dead. Like, I definitely wouldn't have thought of a quick comeback for that one. I would have been like, "Yo, what are you doing?"
That Cuban would have went.
Yeah. So you hear that, and then you hear how, like secretaries and all these stuffs that worked through the White House had actually experienced seeing not Lyndon B. Johnson, but Lincoln's ghost from knocking on the door, or they opening it up and nothing being there. That seems like a more relatable account and more of an understanding.
There's also several accounts of them actually seeing Willie in the White House.
Yeah, his son too.
Staff, especially in the hallways that he used to play in. Because the White House is where they lived, so the kids played.
Well, the Oval Office too, where the president would sit down and write his letters. Willie used to sit in front of that and play with his little war figurines.
The little lead soldiers and stuff.
Yeah, and actually there was a couple people, I forgot who it was. a couple generals, and I think one of the presidents, I can't remember if it was Reagan or not, said that they actually saw a little boy and was walking around the White House asking if anybody had seen a little boy that was missing or looked like he was lost, and they think that might have been Willie.
Awesome. Well, I mean, these are stories that I would love to get some more information on. And, you know, actually talking to people in the White House about ghosts and stuff, it's actually relatively hard. But I do know one author. His name is Jeff Belanger, and he wrote a book. It's actually called The Ghosts of the White House. And he was actually able to get in touch with the curator of the White House, who's been in the White House since Nixon. So he knows all these stories, and they actually let him in, and they introduced him to the staff, and he got to ask the questions, read the archives, and compiled all this into a book. So I'm actually interested to get my hands on that book. And I know Jeff Belanger because I've chatted with him online here and there, and he's a prominent paranormal writer and researcher. Like, pretty cool dude, but I want to actually get that. But that was where my curiosity peaked, because I have yet to hear anybody say during the seance were they actually using a Ouija board. Because the Ouija board, like I said, was brought in during the spiritualist movement. And it wasn't until the early 1900s that a gentleman actually patented the planchette that they use. And then, of course, we know Hasbro picked it up eventually, and Mattel and all these toy companies, and now they sell them as toys.
Yeah, that was weird. I used to walk into a Toys R Us, and there was a Ouija board you could buy, and I was like,
Yeah.
My mom always told me to stay away from those things because she said that demons would wreck her house.
They're good for ages 8 and up, yet you have to be 21 to buy alcohol, but you can be 8 years old and summon a demon. Awesome.
Because you summon the demon, then he buys you the alcohol.
There we go. Okay. Mystery solved. But yeah, that was the whole reason though I ran the experiment, was to test these claims, because I know people have made these claims that planchettes move on their own. Great. So we eliminated the one variable that we know moves a planchette. Me. Started the communication, opened it all up, walked out of the office. I actually locked the door, and I sat in my living room, actually in my dining room, right at my bar, and just sat there with the laptop open and was listening. And within a few minutes of me leaving the room, this room got very noisy. Can't explain it yet. I've still got about 10 hours worth of video footage to go through.
I think people, when they hear the word paranormal, they think of something as they see in movies, something that is so powerful and like so real in front of their eyes that it can't, like there's no way that's not real. You know what I mean? They must be seeing things or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you just heard that thunder. That just scared the living hell out of me. Right? It's a perfect conversation thing to happen right when we're talking about ghosts. Okay. But if you talk about the paranormal and you look at what it could truly mean, I think that can be small adjustments, small things, small connections into maybe another veil or another universe. Now, I've only come to the conclusion of this from, watching Scooby-Doo and things of this sort, where we see the ghosts that usually turn out when they pull out the mask, and it's a person.
It was Mr. Johnson.
Yeah. I can't believe Mr. Johnson. All the neighborhood pets went missing around him, but I guess we never figured he was the killer. Well, when you look at stuff as so realistic, some chained up monster in front of you, that's where I see fantasy. Now, where I see reality is in a loved one or someone passing on into a life that we do not truly know what happens once you are gone off this earth. We don't know if there's an afterlife. We don't know if there's a heaven. We don't know if there's a hell. We don't know.
But we do know this. Energy.
It's all around us.
Energy never dies out.
So remember
quantum mechanics.
Remember what we were talking about the other night when we talked about we hit a little bit on paranormal stuff, and I said that there's frequencies, much like a radio.
Yep.
I believe that there are some types of frequencies that we cannot perceive, or the average person cannot perceive. There might be some out there, like people that speak to the dead or do these types of things that seem unbelievable. And I think it's not out of the realm of possibility to believe that there is something like that. Like there's a channel 2 where it's the Brady Bunch, but it's the ghosts. It's the ghost version.
Yeah. And speaking on that, I actually read an article today that talked about the human eye. the human eye can only see 13% of the entire light spectrum that is actually presented within our world. You think about dogs. Dogs see on a different wavelength and spectrum than we do. Why is it that people report that dogs are looking at things that we can't see?
And why are they barking at things that you can't see?
Yeah, sitting there barking at a corner and like backing up like they're in danger.
Anybody that has been trying to get sleep and has an animal probably has had a weird coincidence with their animal of it doing something unexplainable when it comes to freaking out over something, whether it was weather. They've been known to sense weather patterns, and also paranormal. I mean, you have to think they have a whole nother level of perception that's so much more advanced than ours when it comes to smell, when it comes to taste, when it comes to hearing, when it comes to sight. It's everything is completely different from our genetic makeup. So if you look at that, maybe they have a gateway into a connection with that. That's why it's really weird when they bring in animals when someone is passing away and they have them sit there because it brings a comfortability factor. It's the same reason why in ancient Egypt, they had a fascination with cats, and they believed cats were the guardians of the afterlife. They believed that, you know, they were these giant figures, and they believed that your spirit were afraid of these things because they were supposed to bring you to either heaven or hell or your judgment.
Supposed to bring you to the gateway for you to be judged.
And
where is your heart heavier than the feather?
Yeah, and you were judged by a 3-headed crocodile that sat in the black tar pit. But if you look at stuff of this sort, that's not out of the realm of possibility to think that everyone that, you know, how many ridiculous it might sound, they might be all hitting on kind of the same basis when it comes to the final product of what maybe the afterlife is. How many times when you hear werewolves, vampires, all these types of things, you think of purgatory? A place.
I don't.
I think of this a lot because they don't have a soul. So what happens when a place or a person or thing doesn't have a soul and it dies? It goes
well, that depends on which particular pantheon of religion that you're actually looking at, because that's Catholicism, purgatory. And then you've got other different types of other religions of the world have different, like, let's look at the Vedas, the Hindu belief. The Hindu belief is that you don't go to purgatory, you're reincarnated to experience another form, another life, to experience something that you needed to learn within your life. And you do that until your human spirit has learned everything that it needs to learn before you can go on into the afterlife. Because once you make it to the afterlife, you've learned everything that this worldly human experience can have to offer. And now you can be a teacher in the afterlife and teach these new spirits that are being born into the world and then reincarnated each time.
See, now when you say it's Catholicism that has the idea of purgatory, this is where I come to what I was saying before about everybody hitting on a basis of what the afterlife is. I think people are grabbing, instead of it being this one final product that someone guessed perfectly, I think it's the idea that everybody's pulling bits and bits and bits of pieces of the final product, the end version. There might be a place that is like purgatory, but it's more of a spiritual plane, a type of thing going on around us. Like another, if you think of the earth having 5 shells, there's the shell that we all could perceive, me and you, and there's another shell above that. There's like another layer, like when you add something like that, the scan, or the, what is that stuff that you put on top of license, the laminate. It's like that. It's another laminate on top of the earth. That's a whole nother reality, a whole nother life to live. Who's to say that's not reincarnation going on into the next laminate and laminate and laminate and seeing if it's just layer upon layer?
Well, let me throw this out for you. What if, because I've heard a lot of this especially with the new research and everything that's coming into quantum mechanics and string theory and the multiverse theory. What could we possibly be seeing rips in other dimensions? Because we got stuff like the Skinwalker Ranch. There's crap happening on that place all the time that people are trying to document that they can't explain. It's like one minute you'll see something and poof, it's gone. A light and it's gone. Are these things actually crossing over, or are we sharing dimensions in certain areas?
Or are we getting a rip in our own reality that's exposing us to a whole nother plane?
like Fringe, the show Fringe. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That's basically it's what that was about. Was talking about that there's two almost identical universes side by side, and they get a small rip, and somebody would cross over into that. There might be minute changes and differences in it. Some may be major, and that's where the theory of quantum physics and the multiverse comes in. And so I'm curious about that because there's no way really for us to test it yet. I think we will eventually be able to test that hypothesis. Like,
Well, that brings in the concept of the Ouija board. So going back to
is it opening a portal?
That's what, yeah. Is that opening up a door that should not be opened? And why is it the fact that when people take psilocybin mushrooms or people take types of hardcore drugs that give you a spiritual awakening or type of epiphany in your own life can also kind of they perceive what seems to be another level? Who's to say that's not just another, I guess, laminate of the earth?
Yeah.
Who's to say that they're just not experiencing something in a different view of eyes? Now, if you know anything about people with disabilities, I'm going to relate this to that. They see the world in a completely different way than me and you perceive it. Okay. They have a whole nother perception on things. One will just randomly scream out blue. And you're like, why'd you say blue? And he's looking at the true inner color of something that your eyes might not be able to pick up at the first glance. And you look at that and you look at that just bolsters the reasoning for special people with abilities out there that might have a supernatural or paranormal type ability or sense where they can be able to kind of recognize these types of things. That's where I fall in a little bit more towards when it comes to spirituality, where I'm like, I'm not any way religious. I'm not any way anything like that. Honestly, I'm all about Bigfoot. Any of those cryptids. I really hope that it's the whole idea that there's a bigger picture and a mystery to life. And we're all love that mystery. We all love the chase. We all want to keep searching and trying to find something beyond the hunt.
Which is why I do what I do. It's just
Exactly.
why I conduct these experiments, which is why I go out when I hear of a sighting somewhere, I go out and look at it. And it's like, because it's like one of my favorite TV shows, and I've actually revisited it here lately because they've got all of them on Amazon Prime, The X-Files. I love that series because your main character, Fox Mulder, he always says, I want to believe. And he's always looking for evidence for it. Yeah. Ooh, that is nice.
Did you hear it?
Oh, I heard it. I can hear it. Yeah, just need to play a little background music. We're good to go.
Dude, it's loud as crap. It's scaring the hell out of me too.
What did you think? Now I'm going to go ahead and ask you since we're on the air. What did you think of that video I sent you? The howls.
I don't know why you don't warn people before you send it. You're like, this is going to be interesting for you to listen to. And then you send it to me and I'm sitting there at the gym like, what is he doing to me right now? What is this? I'm sitting there like, I want to listen more to it. But at the same time, I'm like,
I think I brought him in the house and run out here.
Doing it again.
Listen at that.
No more by themselves, or they be out here.
Freaking train,
Get him in the house. Get him in the house. Get him in the house.
See, what do you think? It is very strange, and I wouldn't be doing a video on this if it.
Okay, listeners, what we were listening to is I actually sent him a copy of a video. This happened in Kentucky. Some guy was standing out in his backyard, and he starts to hear this howl. And this is a guttural howl and whooping and all kinds of. These aren't noises that a black bear makes. I've been around black bears.
Now, he's in the woods when this is happening, right?
He's in his backyard.
Okay. Now, what I started hearing was I thought I was hearing a type of train whistle. Like
there's not one in this area. They've already asked that question.
Because that brings the whole factor of Screaming Jenny. You ever heard of that one? The most popular case of the lady or
like a banshee.
Yeah. Well, the Screaming Jenny is a very popular lady in red case. It was a girl that basically got caught on fire, ran out of her house and ran on these train tracks. And she was on fire screaming down the train tracks, and a train hit her and collided right over her. She's gone. Now, this train, see if I can look up.
Yeah, you've already got an article that I think you wanted to share with that tonight.
So she died in a car accident in 1944, and it said, oh wait, that's Jean Pearl Cox. But the famous case of a lady in red ghost is the Screaming Jenny one I was telling you about, and she was running on the train tracks from what I remember, and when she was hit by this train when she was on fire. Now this train that goes by at the same time that she died on this specific day and everything, the conductors for the past, I think it's been over like 100-something years now, have seen a bursting ball of fire coming across the tracks, and then nothing, it just disappears.
Ooh.
I'm like, that bolsters in. If you want to talk about like supernatural and paranormal type stuff, we can talk about maybe that's a memory. Maybe that's
the
an
stone tape
echo.
theory.
I have a feeling that maybe instead of people being ghosts, like being able to communicate with your loved ones afterwards, like if I die and then someone was to talk to me, they're not going to have a new conversation with me. They're going to have recorded conversations of glimpses maybe in their own memory, which bolsters that opinion against the people that might be
Or an imprint of the energy on the home or the location. We get that in Gettysburg. There's a theory that's called the stone tape theory, because up there in Gettysburg area, the ground is very rocky, lots of stonework and stuff like that, and it's almost like horrific events can imprint an energy signature on a place, which is why so many people, I think, report seeing reenactments of battles out on these fields and then turning around and then everybody's gone. So it's like we're seeing a replay, like you would play a tape and then rewind it real quick and then play it again. It's almost like it got recorded onto the property and the stonework and the houses, and just like, let's say, energy signatures getting left. I've heard of a ghost story where somebody actually talked about this. They said, we see our father every night walk from the living room into the kitchen. And it was like, well, but then you start actually talking to the family and you realize that every evening for 40 years they lived in that house. He would sit in his recliner by the entrance into the kitchen, and about the same time every night, he'd get up and walk into the kitchen and make the coffee.
Now, do you think that's the brain's kind of way of understanding or I guess really?
But here's the thing, though. People that are seeing these things weren't related to them or weren't there when all this was going on. We're talking like grandchildren are seeing this.
And that bolsters the fact of it being an echo or some type
Yeah,
of
that's what I'm
imprinted
talking about.
memory.
An imprint on an energy imprint on the house, something that's done repetitively over and over again. You leave that energy signature, or a traumatic event can cause something like that. There's people that supposedly see ghosts in Hiroshima because of the traumatic event that happened there. They see the ghosts and they hear the wails of the people and stuff in the areas. I mean, these are some interesting ideas and things that I think we need to test more, which is why I'm all for people going out and doing paranormal investigations. Doing it correctly, though, going out with a skeptical mind. You have to have a skeptical mind, because if you believe everything that's thrown at you,
you're not creating question where there could be nothing there. There could be, that could just be a creak in the house, not just a voice or something. You have to be able to look at everything that's happening around you, be aware of your surroundings, and also question them. Question, is that this or is that that? Well, let's figure it out and try and find out the true answer to it, because I can't just say if a thing, my curtains rattle or something, is that a ghost walking by my window? No, it could be the AC that is affecting my curtains.
Or the pipes in your home when water goes through them making a noise.
There's a million things happening around us at once, and we got to truly be recognizable of everything around us before we start making final justifications and conclusions, which throughout history people have not done. We still make fault with that today, but with supernatural and all these types of things, nobody was able to do it correctly. Now, the government actually experienced a project. They used a Ouija board, but it was like a psychological experiment. They used, I think it was either 10 or 12 of them. They used a Ouija board, but they all created a ghost in their head, this person, and they believed it was real. They believed like they created a scenario where this guy had 5 kids, he got murdered, created a whole backstory to this ghost. And they used a Ouija board and thought they could conjure him up. They believed that if you could believe in anything so powerful or so much that you could conjure it up into reality.
A tulpa.
Yeah, basically a tulpa. And when they did it with the Ouija board, there were some signs and some things that they were affected. And then later there were some weird kind of stuff where it's like you're reading it, you're like, that could be something else. But, it brings up to the whole aspect of how much you can truly believe in something that might actually create a myth. Now, you ever seen the show Supernatural? One of my favorite shows.
I love that show. It's a great show. I mean, it's good.
45 minutes an episode. I mean, hunting ghosts, demons, Bigfoot, Barefoot, whatever you want to go after. It's awesome. Now, when you're looking at something like a dramatic series like that, and they start hitting on the basis of stuff like this, I don't think it's a fantasy show. I don't think it's anything like that, like it's meant to be. But I think it also hits the same aspect of influencing people to certain folklore type things that have been used throughout history. It has been a fascination for humankind to want to know more about something that it seems so mysterious and so omnipresent that you can't recognize what it is.
Yeah, and I've gone back and actually looked at some of the stuff that they've actually talked about, or the new adventure that they're going on, chasing down a Wendigo or something like that, when they were talking about it, and they go through and explain the lore of the Wendigo. But you can actually go and look this up yourself. I think the writers of the show were very careful in looking at each aspect of the show, what they're doing here. Well, let's get let's dive as deep as we can into the actual history that has been recorded on it. And let's put that in the show, because then it not only is believable, but it gives people something that they can go, I watched that episode of this. I'm curious about this. And then they go and look at, oh, crap, they were actually following the lore, like the Lady in White, like what you did, a Lady in Red. Well, like the Lady in White episode that they did, where supposedly this woman was on her wedding day was murdered, and people see her all the time. These Lady in White sightings happen all over the place. There's several prominently, specifically around Texas, that I know of bridges where a woman in white has jumped off the bridge and committed suicide, and over the years people see her on that particular night.
Yeah,
on the anniversary of her death or something.
The Lady in Red's basically like the opposite. It's just that it's usually a prostitute or somebody that was killed wearing a red dress, and they see him like walking around hotels and stuff of this sort where they were murdered, and unjustified lost souls. Now, do you see as when you die that a spirit or whatever you want to believe gives you a choice of passing on or staying here on the earth? And I think that they slowly degrade if they do. Like they slowly start to lose their minds. They slowly start to fade away, like deteriorate like a normal body would decompose. Yeah. It's the whole reason why I would never do I don't ever want to be cremated, because in my mind I'm thinking, what happens if, like the Egyptians believe, you carry your body into the afterlife with you? Like it's that whole idea that your body that it's on this earth affects the one in the afterlife. So if you burn me, I'm going to be a pile of ash in the afterlife. Imagine experiencing that as a ghost. Like, shit, I'm already dead. Now I'm on fire, and you're just screaming around. Like I couldn't. I just, in my mind, I think of that. I'm like, yeah, just throw me in the ground.
I've already made arrangements for my death.
What are you gonna do?
I'm
jump off a cliff?
No, I'm being put in a tree pod.
What?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you being biodegradable?
Yeah, we want a haunted forest. I'm giving you one.
Oh my goodness! All right, I like that idea now. I might sign up for that one too.
I was like, hey, you know what? I mean, I figure I have a lot of my viewpoints of the body when it dies. It's done. I've been taking from this universe for so long, taking the energy from it to keep my body going. It's my time to give it back.
The smarter way than I think what I would do if I died. Yeah, for sure. Mine's a little bit stupid. I don't think you want to hear it.
Go for it.
I just want people to stuff me, like stuff me like a stuffed animal, and put me in people's closets to scare the shit out of them.
Or hey, they could dig you up every 3 years like they do in Indonesia and change your clothes. And you know what I'm talking about there. Did you read that article? Yeah, they dig up their family members every 3 years in Indonesia, redress them in new clothes and stuff, spend the entire day with them, and then put them back in the ground. How weird is that?
I'm writing that down. I need to do that. That's the ending goal of mine.
I have another story I want to share, and you're going to love this one. This one's on UFOs.
Oh, shit. Let's go.
And this was sent to us from JT. He didn't want his full name used. He just wanted us to go by JT from Washington State.
JT, this is what makes us conspiracy theorists, when you don't use your real full name.
Hey, I told the audience that if they wanted to write in and remain anonymous, I would do it.
So this is specific for this episode.
This is specific. We're just these are people that actually write in for the After Dark show. So this is JT from Washington State. I think I saw a UFO. About a year ago, my best friend and I decided to go hiking and go camp for the night. We spent the day hiking what did he write there? Wow. Okay, guys, grammar.
This is why we have autocorrect. Phones
Hiking.
help us out for a reason.
Okay, yeah, we spent the day hiking on some of our favorite trails, and when we finally got to our destination, we set up camp. This is nothing new to either of us. We go out and do this several times a year, and I'm not some noob who thinks every little thing that rustles the branches or makes a noise, or everything I hear in the woods is a Bigfoot or something out to eat me. I've grown up hunting and doing this kind of stuff my whole life. My buddy and I got to our camps and we set up and got a small fire going. We were just sitting there talking and cutting up when we heard a noise in the distance. I couldn't place the sound. I didn't think it was something I had ever heard before. I looked down at my watch and it said 9:28. My friend and I continued to look around trying to pinpoint the sound, and we finally saw it. The thing was skimming the treetops heading right towards us. It had a metallic look to it, elongated oval shape. No windows that I could see. It hovered over us, and a bright light hit me. Yeah, a bright light hit me and my friend, and it was just for a split second. And then it shot straight up a couple of 100 feet and took off. Like I said, the whole thing lasted maybe 30 minutes or 30 seconds, or so I thought. I looked back at my watch, and it said 10:13. And I noticed our fire was almost out. Did I just experience a time slip? We checked with our local paper and radio station when we got back in the next morning, and no one had reported seeing anything in the sky that night. We had gone back to that location a few more times since it happened, but this time we carry a few extra items like video cameras and audio recorders. I want to catch whatever it was, and we haven't ever seen it again. I know this is short, and there isn't much more to tell. I saw the object, experienced the time slip, and no one believes our story. Honestly, if it hadn't have happened to me and someone was telling me what had happened, I wouldn't believe it either. But thanks for listening to my story, and I'm really enjoying the new segment of the show. That's from JT in Washington State.
JT, I think you were probed. I want you to go into the bathroom, check yourself, and maybe talk to somebody, a stuffed animal. Sounds like you might have some trouble. No, if you look at that, though, the whole fact is, like, he didn't know what he truly experienced, so he didn't know. But it's the idea that anybody's going to say that that's something completely different. Chalk it up to ball lightning, those little orbs that fly down to the ground and fly back up. Like, those have been seen, caught on planes and things of this sort. Now, the believer in me wants to think that that's something like UFOs, because you know how awesome that would be to know that there's another. It's just, when you look at the bigger picture of things, we have a giant space galaxy that we do not fully comprehend of what's going on around us.
Yeah.
And we don't know anything about it. We are learning new stuff every single day, much like we're learning new stuff about ourselves. So it brings up the whole possibility that there are people out there that might be able to see ghosts, might be able to do these types of things. Does not eliminate the factor of there possibly being aliens out there, because you're telling me all these organisms on this one planet just is the only one in existence? You're telling me there's not others out there? And
it's like I said the other night when we were talking. I honestly believe there could be life in the planet, anywhere else in the universe. There are billions upon billions upon billions of stars, and around those stars are planets. And throughout our entire universe are the basic building blocks of life: hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, silicon. Could there be a silicon-based life form? Maybe. So, I mean, I guess the silicon-based life form would be the holy grail of finding a new organism. I mean,
we all know what the final answer is.
I mean, we're still discovering species and different things on our planet. Did you read recently in the Antarctic, with all the ice that is thawing, those worms that they found in the Antarctic in the water? They're about 4 inches long. They look like some sort of primeval butt probe or something that would got barbs and crap all over them. They're really interesting looking, but these were just recently discovered. They were living under the ice.
Like we talked about before, there's 2.2 million creatures estimated left to be still discovered, species that are left to be discovered on Earth today. On the land, 6.8 in the water. Okay, it's not out of the realm of possibility that there are these weird things out there that we don't truly know that exist around us, and they are here, or they were here before, and then now they're just maybe, the fact that we're able to recreate mammoths now. Did you know about that?
Oh
They're
yeah.
making a park in Russia.
I actually talked to Dr. Ian Hale, the one I brought on the show about Asperger's and autism. He was telling me all about that. They were using some of the CRISPR program to actually code the DNA for that mammoth.
So it's not out of the realm of possibility with how far technology is making us seem like aliens, especially in the past. If you look at what we were at before, the fact that ships went down because they were carrying way too much gold, like they were willing to sacrifice their own lives just to try and bring gold back home. That would not happen today. We don't experience, our boats going down because of weight of gold. It's not happening. But who's to say, aliens, all that stuff that's happening out there, we're becoming aliens in that way. We're becoming that form. We're becoming that.
It won't be long before we start venturing out past Earth. We need to get, I think, honestly, that is our next, we need to go there. Because there are so many opportunities for everything out there, technology, everything in space. And I have a feeling that in 2035, if that Mars expedition gets approved, we're going to put people on Mars. We're going to find out that Mars was at one point abundant with life. Right now, we got a rover sitting there.
Do you really want to go to Mars?
It would be worth it. I think it would be worth it just to explore and say we did it, and then head from there. Let's go interstellar from there.
Dude, I don't even like going to my mailbox. Going to a whole other planet seems like a freaking trip and a half.
I'd go. If they offered me a trip right now, I'd go.
You pack all your stuff up and go to Mars.
I wouldn't have to pack anything. I'd just go. They're going to provide everything. It's the government.
I'm about to say, because when I go to the grocery store, if I can't carry everything in one trip, then that's just staying in the car. I feel like I'd go to Mars, then I just wouldn't come back. I'd just be like, all right. Like, Rob, it's terrible here. You'd rather live here than go back to Earth? And I'm just like, dude.
Too much work to go back.
It's too much. Just someone set up Netflix before you go.
Even though you got a 20-minute buffer delay?
That's fine. 20 minutes ain't bad. Maybe as long as it's an everlasting power source. Like, imagine someone leaves the dude on the Mars with that MP3 or like a DVD player and it runs out of battery and he's just sitting there like, shit, he forgot to leave the charger. And he's just flying off in the distance. You're just watching him
wait.
chasing after him, throwing shit at the spacecraft, trying to knock it down.
Man. All right. Well, I've got another story. I've got actually two more stories before, and then we'll just keep going with this. But two stories, because I promised I would read these. I sent you a little message today and told you we were going to be talking about haunted dolls.
Oh, God.
And we were not talking about haunted real dolls.
Oh, dude. The things that you could do to a adult doll, not adult like and we're not talking about. I'm talking about a life-size Barbie doll type thing, beautiful blonde woman. Any types of things that you would consider inflatable. A lot of stuff that you freaks out there do with these things are considered haunted after you're done. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to believe one of those could be haunted.
Awesome. Well, this story is from Judith, and she is here in Houston, Texas area. And I'm going to explain how I got some of these Texas stories. And you're going to find it funny. I actually put out a Craigslist for the show.
Dude, why would you ever go on Craigslist?
For the hell of it. I put out that this is our show. We want scary stories. And I had a few people that were skeptical, and they kind of contacted the show and like, really? Is this what's going on? Yeah, it is. Well, here we go. I got a story that came in from Houston. This is most likely off the Craigslist. It says, hey, Mike, I started listening to your show. Oh, no, this one's actually from back in January. It says, hey, Mike, I started listening to your show back in January. I'm so excited when you started the After Dark part of the show. I love watching shows on the paranormal and listening to other people's stories. I also have a strange story. My girlfriends and I like to get together on the last weekend of the month and hit a bunch of garage sales because we find lots of neat things. One man's junk is another man's treasure. Anyway, 2 months ago, we hit up around 6 garage sales. I found this really creepy looking clown doll. I showed it to my friends. We laughed and we dared each other to buy it, but none of us really wanted it. It was weird looking and it had a spooky vibe about it. So I put it back on the table, paid for the items we wanted, and we headed back to more garage sales. It says, when we go to these things, we all have our own bags that we use to store our loot. We usually keep them in the trunk or in the back of the truck of whoever's vehicle we're going in. This makes it easier at the end of the day. You grab your bags and you go. So that evening, when we were wrapping up, I grabbed my bags and a few of the larger items I purchased, and I put them in my car and went home. Once I was home, I started going through the bags to try to determine which items I would keep and which items I could resell on eBay. I opened one bag, and right on top of the items inside was this creepy clown. It startled me, and I almost gave a little yelp, but I soon began to laugh. Apparently, one of my friends decided to buy it and play a little joke on me. I laughed out loud, and then I sent a group text and I told them, haha, funny, you got me. Who bought the clown? Everyone responded back that they didn't know what I was talking about, and none of them wanted anything to do with that doll. Well, obviously, one of them did buy it, and just didn't want to fess up. So I put it on the bar while I finished going through the stuff, and I forgot about it. My husband got home from golfing with his friends. We had dinner. He went to take a shower, and about 10 minutes later, he's calling me from the bathroom. I go in and talk to him through the door, and he asked me, what and why is this clown doll on the lavatory? I said, what? And I barged right into the bathroom. There it was, sitting on the counter right next to both of our toothbrushes. I told my husband that I didn't put it there. It was on the bar downstairs. He just kind of looked at me like I was trying to prank him. I swore to him I did not do it. I grabbed the doll and took it back downstairs and put it on the bar, the exact spot it was before. I pulled out my phone and texted all my friends again, demanding to know which one of them bought it. Still, everyone denied it. Now, I'm kind of getting a little creeped out. I turned back to the doll, and I can swear it was just sitting there staring at me. I picked it up and put it in one of the bags and then took it out into the garage. I didn't even want that creepy thing in the house. With all that behind me, my husband and I went to bed. Around 2:58, I hear a noise and thought someone was trying to get into the house. I woke my husband, and he heard the noise too. He got up to investigate, and I followed him. We checked all the doors, all the windows, and nothing was messed up. He went outside to look around the yard, and I waited for him just outside the front door. He told me that he didn't see any signs of anyone trying to get in, so it might have just been the wind. We both went back inside, and then we heard it, a giggle, like the giggle of a child that might be up to no good.
Get it out. Get it out. Throw it out.
The hair on the back of our neck stood up. My husband was like, literally, what the fuck? Again, we looked all around. Nothing. It was now 3:15, so we headed back upstairs to go to bed. We got into our room, and the doll was there, sitting on the bed, looking right at the door. I began to freak out and cry, and now my husband realized that I had nothing to do with the doll moving about. He snatched it up and took it downstairs to his office and put it in the safe. Neither of us slept much that night. The next morning, I told him I wanted it gone from the house. The lights began to flicker, and we both kind of looked around. He agreed it had to leave. He went to his office and got it and took off. He said he was going to find a dumpster on the other side of town and throw it away. Needless to say, I was relieved. And when he left, I called my friends and retold what had happened, pleaded with them to know who had put it in my bag. None of them had. My husband did get rid of it, but later that night we got a phone call, and when my husband answered the phone, all he heard was a giggle, and then the phone hung up. We did a room-to-room search, but it was not there. Apparently, it was just letting us know it had the last laugh. The doll has not shown back up, and I haven't picked up another doll at a garage sale since. Well, that's my story, and we have never been able to explain it.
So many mistakes were made in that story.
I want to put this out to my listeners right now. If you've got an item that you think is haunted, do
Break
not
it.
throw
Break
it away. pack it in a box, and ship it to Robbie Robertson at.
You'll ship it to me. I'll throw that shit right in the trash.
No,
Let
you
me tell you
actually,
something.
in all honesty, if you think you've got something that's haunted, ship it to me. I want it.
You can ship it to him, and I will come over to his house and I will smash it. Because,
No,
first of all, your first mistake was buying a clown toy at a garage sale anyway. If it was your friend's idea, okay, your friend, you have to get new friends at this point. Now, if you're
she didn't
looking at
buy it.
something,
Remember, nobody bought it. It just showed up in her bag.
so it was a theft item.
Yeah, so basically she shoplifted it, or the clown decided, fuck this, I'm out of here. I'm going with them.
Okay. You break it when it starts doing some scary, freaky stuff like that. Why would you go to the extent to put it in the garage and move it to all these different places? If that thing even slightly rotated, it's going in the ground. This is why I hate the Little Rascals. Now, my reason behind this is my grandmom had a fascination with all those child shows, all those types of things. And she had every single Little Rascals doll, all that stuff lined up around her house. I used to go over there on summertime and spend the nights when I was a little kid. Now, you know how creepy it is to be in a basement, sleeping on a floor in an inflatable mattress, watching Back to the Future, and next thing you know, you look over and you're seeing a bunch of little dolls with their heads like, and then next thing you know, they look like their heads move, and you're like, all right. Then it's 2:00 in the morning. Let's say a hard rain or thunderstorm is happening, like what's going on around me right now. I'm a little kid. My mind's going to wander, okay? I see the closet door cracked. I'm already freaking out that there's a boogeyman in there waiting to give me the talk about the birds and the bees. Now, we look at these little dolls, these little things in movies and all these horror flicks. You know, you tell a kid, don't watch it, you'll get scared. I've seen adults get scared from it too. A kid's going to go out and watch that movie. It's the whole reason why when I first saw Chucky, my mom bought me a Chucky doll. I thought it was just a cute little doll. That thing was out of my room day one after I saw that movie. The whole aspect is your imagination starts running wild. Next thing you know, these crazy things happen.
Actually, I have a story that's perfect for the imagination, and this involves me.
All right, well, it's an experience.
This is a personal experience. My imagination running amok. Several years ago, I got to the point where I was actually riding my mountain bike to work every day. I only live 5 miles from where I work at. So I was like, you know what? Shit, I'm going to start riding my mountain bike. I put street tires on it, and boom, I was getting it every day. Taking me about 12 minutes to make that ride. I was booking it. Well, but I was leaving the house at 4:00 in the morning while there was no traffic out. I put in my earbuds, throw in an audiobook. I just happened to be doing the Dresden Files. I don't know if you're familiar with the TV show. The books are a hell of a lot better. Familiar. Well, the Dresden Files, he's basically a wizard that fights all these supernatural beings. And I was listening to the one particular book called Full Moon. Werewolves.
Oh, shit.
So I'm trucking along at 4:00 in the morning. It's pitch black outside. I got that little light on the front of my bike that only shines about 10, 15 feet up in front of me. I got my flashers under my seat so cars coming behind me can see me. And I'm just getting it. And I'm going back one of these country roads. And just picture this, about 500 yards in front of me, there's a home off to your left. They've got a big floodlight in their yard, which casts a beam all the way across the road. And I see these huge creatures walk into the middle of the road and stand there and look at me as I'm bicycling up to them. I'm listening to a book on werewolves. My brain went batshit crazy. I'm sitting there, I'm going to die.
It happens. I have the same experience. I actually was watching the X-Files when I was a little kid at my grandparents' house, and they had the episode with the New Jersey Devil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I saw that thing.
On this. I was like, all right, I'm going to die. This is going to happen. It's going to happen. Because if I turn around and those are werewolves, they're going to chase my ass down and eat me. Screw it. I'm bicycling to my death.
Go, Neil Armstrong. Go. So, wait, that's Lance.
I started trucking it a little harder. And as I got closer, it came clear what it was. Their gate to their pasture was open. 4 horses had walked out into the beam of light, and they were just a shadow. But the way they were standing, it looked like a humanoid figure because they had their butts to the back of them, and they were staring at me. So it looked like 2 legs,
It looked like, yeah.
body, and a head. So just give you an idea how much your mind plays with you. And that's an interesting topic that you brought up there. And I want to mention that because you said as a little kid, we see things and our imaginations go wild. Well, people that dive too much into paranormal movies and things like that, their imaginations may be running amok. And they may take the most mundane thing that happens in their home, such as a light starting to flicker because your filament is going out.
It's
crap,
called
now we're haunted.
shadowy figure syndrome, and actually, they relate it now to with pilots seeing balls of light in the sky, thinking they're UFOs. You say that now that UFOs are becoming such a hot topic and such a popular thing, and especially in media now, that pilots are getting so influenced in reading all these articles and types of things. They experience a type of syndrome where they see these balls of light more and more, which is why there's more occurrence of it now. And that's just playing devil's advocate. And then I want to go to the fantasy side of me, where I was a little kid watching X-Files in my grandparents' house. So, for some reason, I guess
I just watched the Jersey Devil episode a couple days ago.
Okay. I was sitting and the person was talking about seeing red lights at their trash can and all these types of things. Now, my window was right by my bed. So I literally could look up my blinds and see outside up into the trees. I swear I was seeing movement in the trees that were these giant winged bat things, and I was like, oh my God, he's going to kill me. Like, it's going to happen. I freaked myself out so bad to the point where you're holding the covers above your face like this, and you just like, my covers will protect me because nothing can enter my secret magical barrier that I have.
Yeah, keep your feet under them.
Yeah, the whole idea is your imagination will conjure up some scary shit. If you dive deep enough into that realm, man, if you see that stuff, you will start seeing these types of things. Do I believe werewolves are real? No. Do I believe vampires are real? No. Do I believe there's all these other types of things that could be out there, such as aliens, everything? I do wish to believe, but I have not truly experienced it myself, which bolsters the fact that once seeing is truly believing.
Well, here's what I want you to do. Werewolves and Vampires. There's a book written by Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She just recently passed away. She was a very sweet woman. I actually got to meet her and talk with her a few times. I wanted to bring her on the show, but she passed away last week. And she was fighting cancer. But she is probably one of the most prolific writers on paranormal. She's written over 70 books. Each book is an encyclopedia of the paranormal. She's got one particular book. I want you to go pick it up. It's on Amazon, about $15. It's on werewolves and vampires. And she goes into the lore of the vampires, but also what the misconceptions of a vampire are. She said there are such things that she thinks that are psychic vampires, where she goes into explaining this, and I heard an interview with her talking about the explanations of this. Have you ever been around somebody that it just literally drains you and you're so tired that you can't even be around that person?
They're called a wet towel.
Yeah.
Get that wet towel personality.
Yeah. Well, she calls them psychic vampires. They basically drain off your life force because when you leave them, you're just literally drained. You almost take.
That's a fact.
Sometimes it might take you days to recoup from it.
There's people like that out there, and
yeah.
that deals the same. There's a lot of, especially how people become a little bit more sensitive, but there are these types of people out there that experience these types of abilities that are known as psychic abilities, where it is called empathy, being an empath, and feeling and sensing other people's emotions. Now, something I kind of relate to a little bit too. I didn't have true belief in, but I can get drained off just walking to the store or just by walking by somebody and telling if that person has bad intentions or just a bad corrupted, I guess, soul or essence in general. I guess that's what you can relate to it. I never believed it. I never chose to believe it. I never see it, but it was impacting me so much that I didn't want to experience anything anymore. I wanted to lay down and become introvert and just do nothing all day. I didn't want to do podcasting. I didn't want to do anything of the sort that I found fun. And I noticed that when I was surrounded by good influences and good ones, I wanted to get motivated. I want to get out there and get going. When I have a good conversation, I'm better for the rest of the day. I think that's like that with a lot of people, but I think a lot of more people experience it at such a higher level that can affect things. And obviously they can affect things from dreams, people seeing people's faces in dreams, spirits in their dreams, all these types of stuff. Werewolves, vampires, I think that's all, like I said, it's bits and pieces of a a different thing. It's all a variety of stuff.
Yeah.
When we look at religion using the afterlife, I feel like they're all getting bits and pieces of one giant picture. Now with werewolves or vampires, she said psychic or emotional vampires, people that drain your energy from you. That is something that is a realistic thing. We've all been around that person that is like a wet towel, that has a draining personality, where you feel like it was more work to talk to them than do anything you can possibly think
Or
of.
it's
Like,
more work to just even be in the same proximity of them.
I think it's because when it comes to the concept of energies, we all have them and we all choose to express them. And if you're exposing a bad vibe or a bad mood, you're expressing a very negative energy that can impact other people in a way that wants them not to be around you anymore. When you create a positive influence, it's actually what I think the problem with the world is today, is that we create such a negative energy that everyone seems like they're out to kill each other. They're out to intent to hurt one another. And it seems like very rarely you find a group of people who surround themselves with nothing but good influence and positive influences, where they kind of keep themselves away from the fantasy life, or I guess from this reality we're all experiencing.
Yeah. But like I said, I love diving into the lore on all these things because, I mean, it's just fast. I'm a horror writer. I'm a fiction writer.
I'm more into mythology type stuff. Like, I like the Cluricon, or the Chlorician, I think it's called. I think it's the Cluricon. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's basically the leprechaun's drunk cousin. Yeah. And I know what I just said, the leprechaun's drunk cousin. He literally deals with ales, liquors, and all these types of stores. He haunts inns and steals your liquor depending on if you're a bad barkeeper or not. If you choose to give him unlimited amounts of alcohol to drink because he's a drunk, he will supply you with good fortune, good money, good liquor, good things of sorts. He will give you a benefit. He'll help out around the inn. And nice honey mead, sweet roll maybe.
Actually, and, I've got several bottles. I make my own.
Oh my God, he's diving into the realm of possibilities.
I've got some peach, I've got some citrus, and I've got some blackberry honey mead.
What is honey mead?
Honey mead is basically you take honey and water instead of using like hops for like what they use for beer. Yeah, honey is your agent that feeds the yeast to cause the fermentation process.
That's some paranormal shit right there.
Yeah, and then you can add like fruits to it, and you get these wonderful, robust flavors. And a lot of times it also depends on which yeast you're using to give it the different flavor. If you use a wild yeast or a particular type of honey, the honey that I use is all harvested here in Texas. So it's harvested from clover fields, so it helps with your allergies as well.
If you look at something like that and relate that to the earth, do you think we're all have a blank version of the earth and we all are adding our own kind of mix to the pot, but we're experiencing more influence in our own lives? So if you choose to fascinate yourself with werewolves or vampires, you're going to structure your life by it. It creates a more of a fantasy, or a maybe like a what is that word that we thought of? The ones that you believed in so much. Tulpa, yeah. If you believe, maybe create a werewolf tulpa. You know, you're creating one technically in your mind.
Or there again, it could be also the cross-dimensional species or cross-dimensional being, something. Because, like I said, we don't know what the hell's going on at Skinwalker Ranch, and you've heard of skinwalkers.
Sounds like
supposedly Native Americans that could change their form and shapeshift, otherwise known as lycanthropy.
Yeah, and there's polymorphs, those types of people that can change their appearance, shapeshifters, all these types of things. Like, we hear Skinwalker Ranch, it sounds like a really good name for like the spinoff of the Playboy Mansion. You know it does, dude.
Have one there. It does, but I don't think I want to have one there.
Dude, I'd sponsor it. Shout out Skinwalker Ranch. Hashtag
now,
ghost
talking
dolls.
about creepy dolls, though, I want to share this because this is a trip I actually want to make. I want to head down to Mexico.
Why?
Doll Island.
What?
When you get off tonight, Google
what?
There is an island down one of the rivers in Mexico. The entire island is full of just dolls. Supposedly, the legend is that a family had lived on that little island, and the daughter fell in the water and drowned trying to reach her doll. Now her spirit is haunting that island and can't be appeased unless she is given gifts of dolls. So this island, everywhere you look, staked to trees, tied to this and that, all over the place, are dolls from people coming out and giving a doll so that the little girl will not bother them.
See,
There are hundreds of thousands of dolls on that island. And people, it's really interesting because people say they go to the island and visit to bring their doll as tribute for the little girl, but they're looking at the dolls and they'll see some of the dolls' eyes move and follow them.
that's why they got rid of the doll in the first place.
So I want to take a trip to Doll Island.
I want to take a trip to go see the El Chupacabra, but I think when you look at,
I think I saw one.
don't give me that I think stuff.
Yeah, I know. I think I saw one. You've seen the picture that they've shown on that was passed around the internet for a while there.
It's a coyote with mange.
Yeah. When we were driving down 111, we were actually moving back to this area, and I had a trailer behind me, and it was probably about 1:30 in the morning. We're coming down the road, and my lights caught something off to the side, and I slowed down enough. There were 3 of them standing there eating a dead deer carcass that looked just like the pictures of the ones that they've been showing on TV.
Dude, when you play with cryptids, you play with my emotions. Okay.
This is 111.
You're playing with something I want to believe. I want to. I need.
Do some hunting.
I'm ready to go find this thing and prove that it exists.
Now, okay, that's the dog species that everybody is calling the El Chupacabra. But if we actually go back and look at the lore actually started in 1995 in Puerto Rico. The Chupacabra looks nothing like what people are calling this beast. This is a mangy dog. The DNA came back on it. It was a coyote. The one that was supposedly a Chupacabra. And people can't see me doing air quotes here. However, you go to Puerto Rico and you actually dive into the lore. The Chupacabra that they're talking about is a winged creature that flies from rooftop to rooftop and hunts its prey from above.
That's the same thing with the boogeyman, though. It depends on the culture.
Yeah.
See, now, a lot of what comes...
was where the Chupacabra lore started in Puerto Rico around 1995 when a first sighting happened.
See, a lot of where my ideas come with spirituality and spirits and ghosts come from a Hispanic background, because I'm not Hispanic in any way, but I've constantly been a minority that's been around a Latino crowd practically my whole life. So I've learned to kind of diverse myself or kind of pick up some of their culture in a way and how they kind of worship the dead, like the Day of the Dead parade that they have where they go and dress up like skeletons and these types of sorts. I've also podcasted with spiritualists, people that believe in lighting candles and doing seances and doing yogi chants and meditations and wands and types of healings and creative stones and practices.
Yeah, I got a bunch of wands sitting there in that rack behind me. You can see them.
They're not out of the realm of possibility when things. People like to look at this stuff as ridiculous, or the person's that crazy guy on the bus. I'm like, it's not, though. You know, it could be Jim from accounting. It's all about having belief or having a type of imagination that can. It might not even be imagination. It could be real fact. But the problem is, without substantial evidence, everything is left to open discussion, and everything's seen as a controversy or a type of conspiracy theory. Now, who's to say there's not a type of species of lycanthrope or whatever you want to call it that exists out there that could be a form of a werewolf, and we've just learned to grab bits and pieces of it and turn it into the giant TV show series we see now, where a handsome guy takes his shirt off and next thing you know, he's turning into a wolf. You know, when you look at stuff like that, like how dumbed down Twilight kind of makes it, it's adapting to a crowd. It's creating something for a audience to understand the ancient history behind it. Because if you tried to read the ancient texts that involved werewolves from the start, it's going to be hard as shit to read if you're a 16-year-old girl that was just thinking about boys all the time.
Not to mention some of the legends of the lycanthropes also comes from the Norse mythology, the berserkers.
Yeah.
Because they would literally, they would get so into the role wearing the skins of these dead animals, and they were so savage. I think I've read some studies where they said that the berserkers were actually drugged, and they would like give them hallucinogens and stuff.
Have you ever decided to have you ever looked at creepypasta.com?
I have here and there.
Where the Slender Man myth came from?
Yeah, the Slender Man myth and all that stuff, and the Russian sleep experiment, and
You should look up some of their creepy stories and see if you can try and look at some of that and might try and find some relation, some folklore, because that sounds like there's definitely, we're all hitting around the same basis, but we're all taking the primal idea of something and then running with it. You know what I mean? We're not truly looking at that legit folklore.
Yeah, I've actually studied the Norse folklore because that's a fascination with me. I mean, you can see all my tattoos. I got Hunin and Munin on my arms, and a Vegvisir right here.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I've always been fascinated with the Scandinavian and Norse and Germanic legends because some of them are pretty damn bloody and interesting, and it feeds into my mind the things I need for my creativeness because, like I said, I'm an author. I write horror stories. I've got 6 books that I've published on zombies.
Send me one of these books, dude.
They're on Amazon. I only did them digitally. I was gonna break the mold. I'm doing only digital.
Right, there you go. Yeah, I think everything's digital. I'm pretty sure bookstores don't even exist anymore. It's like seeing a Blockbuster.
Yeah, I found my Blockbuster card the other day.
There's only one Blockbuster left in the whole United States. It's in Alaska.
I think they were talking about that on one of the news channels.
The last living Blockbuster. Let's bring them back.
Awesome.
Dude. Let's retrorize it. I think, but see, that's where my history comes from too. Going to Blockbuster and getting those freaking DVD rentals of those scary movies, man. I mean, it creates
a passion to want to know more and then study.
It creates a mystery in a world that is lacking it.
Which is why I always say, I want to believe. Why wouldn't I want to live in a world where all these fantastical things are possibilities? Even though some people might think they're terrifying, I would be fascinated with the fact that there is a Vlad Dracula still living and mesmerizing women, and or a guy who's going to turn into a werewolf and run the pastures at night.
Frankenstein, yo. That's some real
Mary
shit.
Shelley's Frankenstein.
Okay, that's some real stuff. We've been trying to recreate the dead for a long time. You can't tell me there's not somebody out there.
Pig's brain.
Okay, well, you cannot tell me there's not something out there or some type of creature that could have been created this way. And I think they did a really good job of interpreting the old style of Frankenstein in the new movie I, Frankenstein that came out a few years back. That was a very good rendition of that.
I did actually enjoy that movie, especially with the
gargoyles.
The how they twisted the gargoyles to make the gargoyles the actual good guys. But if you think about it, the gargoyles were the protectors of the buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what gargoyles were meant to do. They were meant to scare away.
Actually, you know what a gargoyle actually is? Where it gets its name?
I have an article over here somewhere.
The gargoyles weren't actually created as protection to ward off anything. They were drain spouts. And as the water would run through the spout and come out the mouth, it would make a gargling noise. It's crazy. The name gargoyle.
That's cool.
Yeah, actually, because I found out about that because I actually bought a book that was on gargoyles because I was hand carving some gargoyles. And the whole book was also a history on them and how to carve them.
If there was one thing, paranormal, supernatural, cryptid, whatever you want to believe, that you could truly find out exists, what would you choose? Aliens, anything?
I would have to say aliens.
Why aliens?
Because they can get me off this damn rock.
Do you think Bigfoot could not throw you off this damn rock?
I think Bigfoot would jack my ass up.
Dude, I would be best friends with Bigfoot. I really do like I have more of a fascination with the Yeti than I do with Bigfoot.
Actually, I can say aliens, maybe even ghosts and the paranormal. Because who wouldn't want to know what happens after this shell is gone?
I like that, but I don't want to. It depends on how far you take understanding ghosts. I would hate to know that there was, like we talked about before, like the lens camera thing, the little joke the guy did about it could see ghosts and there were ghosts doing things around him he didn't want him to do, like maybe putting his crotch right here. So I'm speaking into this microphone. It's right next to me. Like, this ghost, I can't get rid of him, and he's just doing this. Like, I would not want to know that's happening right now because I don't think I'd be able to sleep at night knowing a ghost was trying to put his balls on my head.
Yeah,
now,
teabagging you.
Especially
some millennial that died, and he's doing the Halo teabag over you.
Good God. And if you think about Bigfoot, the Yeti, and all these things, I have a fascination because with the stories with the Yeti are so realistic. Like the Sherpas that would take the people up the Tibetan mountains,
Mhm.
and they would warn the people like not to be up here at this certain time because they used to experience or this type of beast that would come down from the mountains. If too much, I guess they were out there too long exploring the mountains. It was a fear that the Yetis would be upset and come down and do what a couple cases people were talking about, where they would come down and take the youngest daughter or take some of the daughters and out of the house and run off into the snow with them. And if you think about the abdominal snowman, is different from the Yeti. The Yeti is actually a species they call. They actually discovered us how we discovered another form of hominid, like another ape. They see the same thing, kind of like another group of that same genus in Tibetan mountains, which they think could be what they were talking about with the Yeti, with these large giant apes
Yeah.
or white apes. And if you look at that, then you start hearing stories about people that are Sherpas that are taking people up the mountains, and next thing you know, a boulder flies by and knocks the person off the mountain, and they're talking about some creature that lifts up boulders and throws them at you to get you off of his mountain. I see that and I hear that, and I'm like, that's really, really out there. But it makes him seem like the guardian of the mountains. Same thing with Bigfoot. Like when I picture Bigfoot, I don't just picture this giant, the beast or the video you see
Mhm.
that it's all over television. I picture a freaking giant ape in a robe with a staff. And he's like,
I have
I
you
am the
have you ever
guardian of the
also
forest.
have you ever also noticed that a lot of Bigfoot sightings coincide with UFO sightings?
Are you saying Bigfoot's an alien?
There is that theory because there's a lot of times where these Bigfoot sightings over, especially specifically in America, happen a lot of times in places where there are also abundant UFO sightings. Now, I'm gonna say that I didn't read it. I actually listened to an interview with this author who was researching Bigfoot sightings, and she went up into like Pennsylvania and these areas, and we're talking to farmers up there that supposedly had seen it. And she said, I'm going to tell this story. She goes, but please try not to laugh while I'm telling it to you, because this was the most hilarious Bigfoot UFO story I have ever been told. She said, and this old man that told it to me was stone cold serious. He didn't seem like the kind of guy to joke. She said, so I was asking him because the locals in the town said, yeah, this guy right here, he's actually experienced and seen a Bigfoot and a UFO. And they were like, and she was like, whoa, I have got to go talk to him. So she went, and he said, yeah, I'll talk to you, kind of slow drawl and all this stuff. He said, tell you what, he said, why don't we go down to where I saw it? So he took her in his truck and they drove down to this area. And you know how sometimes where they put these fire cuts
Yeah.
in forests? So if this part of the forest catches on fire, it dies out before it can get to the other. They're big
Oh, yeah.
cuts all the way through it. He said, I was out tending to my cattle and stuff one day, and I was standing in the fire cut, and I just happened to turn around. And I looked down at the bottom of that ravine, and there's a Bigfoot standing there. And he's like, oh crap, he's probably going to see me.
Mhm.
And then I realized the Bigfoot wasn't even worried about me. He was looking at something. And so he followed the Bigfoot's gaze, and there was a UFO hovering in the sky. And the Bigfoot, he said, was sitting there looking at the UFO and kind of went,
You
turned
can't
around
make
and
me.
looked at, he said the Bigfoot turned around, looked at him, and did that shoulder shrug and just kind of walked off into the woods.
You can't make me believe this story when you did a southern accent.
Yes, sir, buddy.
Southern accent, and I
Would you rather
totally
me do it like, we got a nice paper boy?
got enough paper for you.
But yeah, she went in telling this, and I was rolling laughing, and she said, this was a dead serious conversation I had with this guy.
Maybe he believed it himself. Like, you ever try and trick a lie detector test by believing it so much that you can fool yourself
Yeah,
into believing
but
it's real?
it's an interesting story. I mean, wouldn't it be interesting to stumble across a Bigfoot, he turn around and look at you and be like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, I'd rather a Bigfoot be able to relate to that. Like, yo, you see that shit up there? And you're like, yeah, that's a spaceship, man. It's the end of the earth. He goes, look, I got your back. You got my back, okay?
After this is done, we part ways.
Yeah, this is it. You didn't see me, I didn't see you, but we're about to kick some alien ass, okay? I'm not trying to get
Oh.
probed as much as the next guy. I want to know the aliens that try and probe Bigfoot.
That was the last time the aliens visited Earth.
Fucking it's like, no, we're never doing that again.
It's like that meme I saw where aliens went down to Earth and they went, "What is this?" And he goes, "I don't know. I found it on the planet. I think we should probe it." And he says, "Okay, cool." And it's a skunk. And the guy's holding the tail. He goes, "Where do we put it? I think we put it here."
Dude, I'm telling you, what's their fascination with an ass? And then it comes to the concept of that's where
My
all our
question is,
information comes out.
who all these people were that actually came up with the idea of getting probed in the butt? Because it always seems to be some redneck living in a trailer park.
And why are they coming out saying that they got probed in the butt? That's to be the last
Yeah.
thing I hit.
But then we also dive into the cattle mutilations. You ever looked at any of those?
Yeah, some with the chupacabra where they had the holes in the necks,
Mm-hmm.
3 little pincer holes and things like that, and the blood was completely sucked out.
Yeah, and the butthole is gone.
Well, that's a common thing with lions. They eat the ass first.
Yep, because they're hardcore.
Yeah, they like to go right to the dessert, not the steak.
Well, I've got one more story that I want to share before we start wrapping this up tonight. And this one, they didn't even give me their name. It just said Private Houston. And this one says, oh, crap, it just turned off on me. And this one
Maybe
says,
that's his name. Hold on, that's his name, Private Houston.
Private Houston. Okay. It says, I saw your ad on Craigslist asking for stories of ghosts, and I thought this had to be a joke. So I looked up your show, and sure enough, it's an actual podcast, Ghost Stories. So I decided to write in. I think I have an attachment or an entity that lives in my apartment. I always feel like I'm being watched, and things are always being moved around. I came home one evening to find all my dining room chairs turned around and pushed against the table. My cat is always watching something move around, but never seems to be bothered by it. Whatever it is definitely did not like my ex. When he would spend the night, he would wake up with scratches all over him. He finally broke up with me, and we finally broke up, and he turned out to be a real jerk. Whatever is here has never hurt me. It's like these little things happening are just reminders that I'm being watched over. So is this really a haunting, or is it a guardian angel?
That ghost is a cock block. You know, he was like, nah, I got you, girl. I got you,
I
fam.
got you, girl. This dude's a jerk. I
Dude,
followed him the other day. He was messing with Cindy.
Yo. That damn Shaggy song just popped in my head.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. It was fucking the ghost of Christmas past.
Awesome, man. Well,
I
we're
just
almost
think
on 90 minutes now.
when you hear about that, though, you hear about a little story, a little tale of that little sorts. Why are you still in that house? Once my furniture flips
like that.
Once anything, if the toilet seat's down or up, I don't know. I'm done. I'm gone. I don't remember doing
to any of my After Dark shows?
I've listened to 1 or 2 bits and pieces of them, and I'm like, this is exactly
One
what
of the
I want
houses I lived in was extremely active. We would have stuff thrown around the house. Clocks would fall off the wall that were on a hook. It would means in order for it to come off the hook, it would have to be lifted up and off, and just come crashing down to the floor. Hook still on the wall.
Seismic tremors. I'm a scientist. Seismic tremors.
I've sat in my bed one night looking at my closet door that opened, hearing my clothes go back and forth on the rack. Remember back when we had wire hanger clothes hangers? Could hear them on that steel tube that was used as a clothes rack going shh, 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 shh. And it's like, I'm not getting up. I'm just going to stay right here, like you said, under my magical tent.
If my house
but that morning when I got up, every stitch of clothing that I owned was on the floor, and all the coat hangers were still on the rack.
If my house was haunted and I started hearing stuff like that, I'm gonna level with the ghost. I'm gonna let them know I'm gonna leave or you're gonna leave. We can choose rock paper scissors battle over it the passive way. We can talk it out, You can start paying rent if you're going to be living here. Or we're about to box it out like Mike Tyson style. We're going to Mortal Kombat fight it until we find a winner, and then we decide who gets the house or not, okay? Like, you ever hear that joke? The one comedian's like,
Ron White?
No, not Ron White. It's his name's Lavelle Crawford. He goes, "Don't you hate it when someone moves into a home and they're like, there's a ghost here?" It's like, then why don't you move out? It's like, if a ghost was in my house and he goes, "Go away," he goes, "How about you?" And he goes, "Get out." He goes, "Why didn't you tell me when I was looking at the house before I moved in? Shit, I already bought the damn house. You get out." He goes, "Fair enough," and fades away. Like, that's what it is. If you don't want us coming here and living there on the day of when we're checking out the house, why would you not do it then? Why do you have to wait a month or something? You build up power or some
28 days later before you have me murder my entire family.
Yeah, Amityville Horror, one of my favorite movies, mostly because, it sees the psychoticness of these types of
I've
things.
actually listened to George Lutz in person talk about his experience when he moved into the house after the DeFeos were all murdered there.
I swear, there's something that can happen so impactful of an event, whether it's something as gruesome as a terrible murder like that, can make a blood or a stained memory that can be something spiritual.
The house has actually was sold in 2010. It sold for $1.5 million. The family that bought it petitioned the city to have the street name changed and their address changed. They took those windows out of the house so it's no longer recognizable from the street. And they still live in it happily with no problems.
Dude, and in a world of possibilities, there's no closed options.
If I had billionaire money, I would have bought the house. And I'd have cranked a 5-10 grand a day on that house. Open for paranormal investigation. Let's go. $1,000 a head.
See, I would just, if I was a billionaire, I'd just put all my money into the Bigfoot Research Foundation.
Yeah, crazy billionaire money. Okay, guys, Patreon, anythinggoes.com, Patreon. You want to give us some crazy billionaire money? We'll go out and we will research these things. We'll go sit our butts in the middle of the Pennsylvania pine forest and listen for hoops and hollers. I'll go invest some of the most haunted locations. Patreon.com at Anything Goes Project. I don't have a Patreon.
Yeah, I'll make one to go explore. If someone's gonna pay me to go try and find Bigfoot, I'm down, dude, because that sounds like a dream of mine. Honestly, to be sitting by a campfire, and next thing you know, Bigfoot just walks up, starts playing guitar. You're like, "You can play guitar?" He goes, "I can sing too. I also sound like Sam Elliott." I'm like, "Oh my God!"
Did you watch it?
What, the Demon Hunter thing?
No, The Man Who Killed Hitler.
Yes, that one, and Ghosts and others. Yeah, Bigfoot. That's what it was.
It was A Man Who Killed Hitler and Bigfoot. I haven't watched it yet. I've listened to a podcast where they're talking about it. But I'll tell you how warped up my kids are. My kids, because me being a horror writer, my kids don't scare easy on nothing. Walk in the living room. I'm like, what are you guys doing? We're watching The Man Who Killed Hitler and Bigfoot. I showed my kids the movie The Exorcist. And they turned and looked at me and went, "This scared you?" And I said, "Yeah." And they went, "Lame."
My cousin won't watch that movie because of Sam Elliott. He was like, "I've gotten enough of Sam Elliott." I'm like, "We got enough of Sam Elliott?" Now, there's a little bit of background about my cousin. He actually used to eat dinner with Sam Elliott all the time when he was a kid. And he told me that, and I was like, "Wait a minute, you had dinner with him?" He goes, "Yeah." And then he started walking away. I was like, "Don't walk away. Don't leave me with that. You got to give me more information. You hung out with the guy that I picture every time I see the Silverado truck." And he goes, "He's just a person, Robbie." I'm like, "No, he's not. He's Sam Elliott." And like, he won't watch anything that he's in now. He's like, "Dude," he goes, that guy used to basically babysit me." I'm like,
He told the story of the dude.
Yes. Oh my God! One of the people I basically modeled my life after.
Yeah. Except for that. I mean, yeah. So, man, I guess that's it for tonight's After Dark. We got to share a few scary stories. Did you have you said you had a couple of the red lady stories. Did you have just the one tonight?
I just got really the one that, like, the one I truly believed in was like the Screaming Jenny one. I mean, another one was Jean Pearl Cox. She was a frequent guest in a hotel that died actually in a car accident in 1944, and it says to walk top floors in her elegant red gown, occasionally stopping at the window to stare out into the city. Many people have encountered this ghost, but they all say she is not a threat. And then Lady in Red tends to be vengeful because they're given their history as known to be troublemakers and prostitutes throughout hotels. They're very, very common. People would see a type of beautiful, scantily clad woman running around in these hotels, which leads to the concept of Lady in Red. And then, Bloody Mary coming from myth, first of all, dude, like that whole idea, it changes in different folklores. Instead of doing it in American culture, it is now. It started out as a slumber party game, but there was actually people experiencing these types of like painful effects, like scratches on their arms and glass like on their cuts their face and stuff like this. And I think it's the fact of how far your imagination can be so impactful that could it really affect the reality around you. That's where I start to really fall in line with belief of something, another alternate reality or type of perception we can't receive, or type of frequency out there, much like our lights have a type of signal beaming off of it. Same thing with the ghosts, man.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, guys, with that, I guess we're about to wrap up this show tonight. And Robbie, I want to thank you for coming on. And I know this was something that you and I were talking about. You were like, man, I'm interested in doing this. This would be cool. I know
it was my pleasure. I think we need to get more people that have Bigfoot experiences or cryptozoology.
It's a matter of just reaching out to people and trying to get them in. And I know a lot of people in podcasting and in the paranormal, and I'll see what I can do to see about getting some of them on. I know in August I have a guest coming on. Her name is Marie D. Jones, and she wrote the book, several books. One of them is called Viral Mythology. One of them is the 1111 Time Prompt Phenomenon. And her current book, which just got released, actually, she texted me the other day and said, "Hey, I've got my author books in, the ones that they give to the author to give out for signatures and for autographs and stuff." So she's going to be doing that, but she's going to come on our show and talk about hers. And this one's about ghosts and notorious hauntings and stuff. So it's going to be a really interesting show. Marie is actually a really good friend of mine and a friend of the show, and so love her writing. She also has written a young adults book that her son co-wrote with her while he was still in high school.
Oh, that's awkward.
It's called Echo, Evil Kid Hunting Organization.
Oh my goodness.
And so they are actually in the process of writing Echo 3. They've already done 2 of them.
God, it sounds like she's got a little bit of a story to tell.
Oh yeah, she is awesome. We've had her on the show before when we had the podcast going 7 years ago. I mean, she's just totally awesome lady. And she's also, I have to admit this now, she's also one of the, her and I are the leaders of our cult. So just let you know. We have Taco Tuesdays and Wine Wednesdays.
That's awesome. That's how you make friends forever, right there.
Oh yeah, because they can't leave. So with that, guys, we're going to be wrapping up tonight's episode. And once again, I want to thank Robbie for coming on with us. And who knows, maybe this will end up being something that we do regularly. And if you got any stories that you want to tell, please send them in. Write to us at stalkermailbox@gmail.com. Or you can actually call our number. It's 361-433-5739. Tell us your story in person. Read it or whatever on there. If it's more than 3 minutes, call back in, continue the story. I'll fix it in post, and we'll play it on the show for everybody to hear. Keep your name out of it if you want to be anonymous.
Follow that Anything Goes project, especially the After Dark series. And if you feel like me and him should do a collaboration, let us know in the comments and maybe narrow down some topics we can focus on.
Yeah. And so, I mean, this is something that we're looking at talking about doing. I think it'd be fun because, it's fun to be able to play off of another person and get some witty banter going back and forth. But also there's a point where you may say something, I may say something that triggers something with one or the other that makes us go, all right, but I want to delve a little deeper into this. What do you think about this or that? Like,
I think we should start like a network type thing, and then like have the Anything Goes project and the Anything Goes project After Dark on there, and then I'll have my podcast Out of the Blank, and then fill in the blank with the narrowed down topics. I think if we narrowed it down, like conversation like that,
and then we do like a collaboration together, and it's like the Anything Goes Out of the Blank. Anything goes when it's out of the blank.
I'm getting the tinglies. I think it works, man, because I think everyone out there is looking for something interesting, and especially like fill in the blank when you focus on topics, which is like my little spinoff I do. I mean, quick 30-minute things, you just focus on one specific thing, getting your thoughts and stuff. You're able to vibe more. Like when you're dealing with the paranormal and the supernatural all in one podcast, you're dealing with so much. I mean,
yeah, and because there is so much that we can deal with, there are so much that we can talk about.
Exactly. I think if we do it again, we got to figure out one that's like all about like cryptids or all about like a certain cryptid, and then like narrow it down that way, because then we would have way more of an outlet towards the thing we're supposed to be talking about, rather than hopping from subject to subject so fast. It's like,
we could do something on like a La Llorona, or we could do an entire episode on the Kentucky Goblins.
Thunderbird, bro.
Thunderbirds. Pterosaurs that are being seen all over the skies in Texas.
Don't go to Texas, people. I'm telling you, everything weird happens in Texas.
Yeah, but also don't go to Australia, because everything over there wants to kill you.
That is true.
So with that, guys, we're out of here. Hey, Rob, give your podcast information one more time, how they can get a hold of you, and so we can just get that going.
Well, you can find Out of the Blank anywhere, I guess, with their social media: Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all these sorts. It's just conversations with me and different people I have on. It's just, we all walk around the world. We all share it together, but no one ever takes the time to know one another. So why don't you take a listen and hear some amazing stories and amazing experiences and thoughts of people just like this guy here doing his wonderful project, and you'll be able to kind of maybe pull something for it. It might help you get through your day, or might, just make you want to chase down something you never thought about doing before. And then if you look at Fill in the Blank on my podcast, it's all narrowed down topics, usually with a same group, a couple friends I have over, and we just talk about stuff like the boogeyman or some government conspiracy that comes out.
Awesome. And once again, guys, if you need to get a hold of me, it's a stalkermailbox@gmail.com or 361-433-5739. Reach out to the show. And also find us anywhere that you find a podcast: iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, on our host site, Podbean. Just check us out. If you like the show, subscribe to it, tell a friend, teach these older generations what a podcast is, because they need to know this. This is radio that floats around in the sky. And just help people out. It helps the show for you guys to get the word out for us. And like I said, if you want to come on the show, contact me. I'll bring you on the show.
Plus, if we got a community of better influencers and better positive vibes out there, we're just going to create a better world in the long run anyway.
Absolutely.
We need to worry less about what Donald Trump is tweeting and more about what Bigfoot is doing.
Absolutely. So with that, guys, I can think of no better way than to cut this out than right now. So with that, guys, we are out of here. Stay spooky, y'all.
Peace.
Hit stop recording.
Now, here comes the music.
We want to thank you for tuning in to the Anything Goes project. If you like this show, subscribe and share it. That would greatly help us out. To contact the show, email us at stalkermailbox@gmail.com. We love hearing from our subscribers and our listeners. The Anything Goes project can be found on iTunes, Castbox, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn, and many other Android applications. And once again, thanks for listening.